Happy Wednesday, UnWoke Nation, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 67 of the UnWoke Show, where free speech is welcome, all subjects are on the table, and your boys Rich and Tim bring you the latest and greatest information for your entertainment, baby. I'm your host, Rich, along with my co-host, Timmy. How you doing, Timmy?
Great, Rich, man. Glad to be back. Been looking forward to this all week. UnWoke Nation, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you guys tonight as we take you on this journey. Just a little housekeeping first before we kick into tonight's episode. Guys, you can find us on all your major podcasting platforms. We're on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasting platforms. We're also on Apple as well. Again, wherever you get your podcasting platforms, we are out there, guys. Tune in, check us out. Plenty of great content out there for you. And tonight, guys, we're going to travel across the pond, and we're going to head over to the UK, and we're going to attempt to figure out why the streets of the UK have become battlegrounds, Rich.
Yeah, so I know we've been hearing a lot of stuff that's going over there in Europe right now. But they've had some really key stuff going on in, I'd say, like the last couple of weeks, and also definitely want to make sure we hit that story.
Oh yeah, for sure, and it's it can equally be applicable back here. In the U.S., the greatest country in the world. Just got to give a shout out to the U.S. And how much we love it here. But we got to pay attention to our friends across the pond. So, guys, we're going to paint a broad picture of what's been happening.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly. So, if you paid attention to any sort of either national news or international news, right, over the past few months, the UK has witnessed a series of protests and riots across several cities, including London, Manchester, and Birmingham, right? These events have drawn significant media attention. Whether you're checking, the Communist News Network, CNN, MSNBC, wherever you're getting your news from, right, you'll see some sort of story about UK unrest. But to understand the roots of unrest, it requires us to look beyond the headlines for a second. Okay, because it's just easy to say, okay, in the headlines it says UK unrest, what's happening now? Oh, that looks a little similar to what's happening to us. Maybe not on that level, but you kind of get an idea. Right?
And every community's story is going to be a little different. So
right, and there's always going to be contributing factors.
Right.
So, these riots are taking place, on several factors. Right. I think at the core, they reflect a deep-seated frustration among different communities. Key elements include economic disparities.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. That sounds eerily close to home.
Right.
The UK has faced increasing economic inequality over the past decade. Ironically, that mirrors us here in the U.S. Right?
Yahtzee.
Exactly. The cost of living has risen sharply. Again, another similarity.
Ever heard that before?
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Those costs are being especially felt in housing and energy. I would also include food. Going to the grocery.
Man, Tim, this is sounding like two peas in a pod right now.
Yeah,
the only thing that's separating us is a pond.
I mean, you go to the grocery, $100 isn't even filling a basket.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Right?
I mean we'll say, like 3-4 years ago and like that. So what, you might come out with... You do like a
six
buck,
things?
Yeah, something like that. It's like, but I mean, you do $1.50, say a couple years back, and like that. It's like, dude, you can making 2 trips to the car.
Exactly. Wages have not kept pace. Again, check California here in the U.S. The left coast. You're hearing all sorts of laws and stuff for what they're trying to do with increasing wages at all the major fast food restaurants. The younger generation is struggling with job insecurity and stagnant wages.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So that's that's economic disparity, right?
Mm-hmm.
What about the government policies? Recent government decisions have exacerbated these economic pressures. Cuts to social services, public spending has disproportionately affected lower income communities.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Project 2025 here in the U.S., what do they want to do? Food stamps, making it more difficult. It all targets, lower income demographics here. Blacks, Hispanics.
Yeah, this is more that is disproportionately tends to be more minorities, and I understand.
There's a growing sentiment that the government is not addressing the needs of its citizens.
No shit.
Yeah. What does that sound like?
Us.
Yeah, exactly.
U.S.
I think the biggest. I think the two biggest factors. One, social injustice.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a significant element of social justice at play, right? Many of the riots have been sparked by incidents perceived as injustices, such as allegations of police brutality or discriminatory practices.
We've never been through that before, have we?
No, not at all.
Oh, boy.
These events have acted as catalysts for mobilizing people who are already frustrated with systemic issues. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The violence in towns and cities across England and in Northern Ireland have been fueled by misinformation online.
Yeah. And as you and I discussed before, it's the reason why I think a lot of people nowadays is they've showed surveys in the past where a good portion of people who do not count on the news to really give them legitimate source of what's truth.
The far right and anti-immigration sentiment. Mm-hmm. Again, same issues we're experiencing here.
Yeah.
And I think the latest example of these social injustices, right, is definitely the stabbing of 3 young girls at a dance class in the seaside town of Southport in the north of England. Has also been followed by the worst unrest the UK has seen in more than a decade. All you have to do is go to Twitter. Andrew Tate did a rant about the stabbings in the UK, right? It seems like the police in the UK are more focused on proper use of telecommunications infrastructure. There's a video out on Twitter about 2 UK police officers arresting an elderly man in his home because he made inflammatory, disrespectful, and incendiary remarks on Facebook.
You see, and here's the thing, man. It's like you're not only hearing that in the UK, but you're also hearing that stuff like in Australia, where I once heard this was a couple years back, and also I guess apparently a lady was talking about trying to put together a protest, and matter of fact, I will say specifically when it was, but I guess she was planning on doing a protest against, I guess, a lot of the COVID mandates that were going on, and the police showed up to her house to arrest her for making a post on Facebook.
Yep.
If that doesn't scare you about what it is, it's like when you think about communism. It's like people don't understand. It's like when you're dealing with communism or that type of stuff, it's like they will shut you down if you say things that are against what they want. And also, but going back to what you're saying, it's like they're arresting an old man or so because, like, really?
Yeah. And this is in Paris. So is Paris the new Russia?
Well, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things going on. I mean, France has got a lot of issues. I mean, let's just forget about the Olympics for a second, but it's kind of like, I mean, Paris was in upheaval weeks prior to the Olympics because of them having a revote and doing all this stuff because their prime minister wanted to do that, which they thought was a big mistake. And it turns out it was going to go to this lady named Le Pen, who was basically considered part of the you could say the far right kind of conservative, whatever you want to call it, that considered there. And then it kind of basically, flipped. Like the next week when they did another recall. And so a lot of the things that are going on, so that country's got a lot of major issues going on. So I don't know, man. It's like some people could say, it's like, is that a preview of what potentially could come across? I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, so to echo those sentiments, right, Elon Musk has ramped up his war of words with the UK Prime Minister. And question if
he's in a fight with country's leader.
And question if it was Britain or the Soviet Union after a man was apparently arrested over Facebook comments. Right, just covering it.
Right.
The billionaire owner of X has engaged in a war of words with Sir Keir Starmer over riots gripping the UK among concerns online disinformation. Amid concerns, online disinformation is fueling the unrest. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a video out on X that shows police officers arresting a man for making offensive comments on Facebook.
According to who? Who decides whether that's offensive or not?
Whatever their...
Does it say what he said?
It doesn't go into the specific words that were expressed in Facebook. They're in the video on X. An officer is shown telling a man he's being arrested on suspicion of improper use of the electronics communications network.
Yeah. Wow.
This covers sending a message that is grossly offensive or an incident, obscene, or menacing character and can result in a maximum 6-month jail term or a fine.
Like, here's the thing, Unwoke Nation. It's like, do people really understand how scary that really is? That you're going to be when you
arrested, for.
See, that's the thing, man. It's like, this
your
is
speech, essentially.
Right. See, and that's the thing. Is like, I think people really don't understand. And also, you and I can speak for this country, and also when people don't understand, it's like, I mean, how much freedom we really have to be able to say what we want to say. Well, do you realize where you can't protest in Saudi Arabia? You can't do that.
I'm not surprised.
It's like, you can't do that type of stuff. So when, again, as you guys have heard me say many a time, it's like when you're hearing about people saying about how horrible this country is, like, you don't know how really good you have it. This man is being arrested for saying something that I guess apparently is against whatever narrative it might be over there in the UK or whatever,
whatever their
whatever it is,
communication policy, and he's violating said policy or whatever.
Like, dude, they would have had me after Twitter. They would have had me arrested a long time ago.
Well, after our second or third episode, we would have been shut down.
You're like, clink clink. Nope.
Yeah. So the fourth point I want to make here is the political polarization. We're obviously seeing that here in the U.S., but in the U.K., it has seen increased political polarization in recent years. The division between different political ideologies has intensified, and this polarization often spills over into street-level conflict.
Wow.
Yeah, the riots.
Yeah.
The rhetoric from various political figures can sometimes inflame tensions rather than promote dialogue. That ironically sounds very similar here. We get into economic disparities and social injustices are deeply intertwined. I think this next sentence says a lot. It says, when people feel economically marginalized, they're more likely to perceive social systems, including law enforcement, as unfair or oppressive. For instance, if economic hardship leads to higher crime rates in certain areas, i.e. Chicago, it can create a cycle where these communities are over-policed and unfairly targeted, which in turn exacerbates feelings of injustice.
I know a lot. Well, I'll speak for myself, but I know a lot of times when people say, when people are struggling, where so it's like you have violence or things like that are not too far behind. And I'm not saying every person who's financially struggling where it's going to go into crime. That's not true. And also, but they seem to kind of coexist, or where you have people that say, like, if I use an example of, and I've heard this many a time, it says, if you have a kid who grows up hungry and he's living in Rio de Janeiro in a favela, and he sees all, the drug guys who are like that, they're going around driving cars, or around the nice girls, stuff like that, and he's starving every day, so mom can barely put anything on the plate or where, so it's like he's going to kind of go like, well, I don't want to live like this, so I'm willing to put myself, and do those different things. But it's sad to see that, or so. But it also kind of goes too is when people say that it makes them look at the police in a different way.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, but also, too, that's where you get into the misinformation. It's like what I told you, misinformation, like all policemen are bad. See, that's why I told you before. It's like, you and I talked about this off shows. Like, when you have people like LeBron James that said many years ago, it's kind of like, like police are out there trying like to hunt, black men. It's like, don't say stuff like that, man. Not every policeman's like that.
No, not at all.
It's like, yeah, it's like, I mean, now what it is you're putting their lives at danger. You're saying that black men are at danger, or you're putting their lives at danger. Take the situation that happened about the cop who stopped to fill up his squad car at a gas station in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, he got shot.
Someone walked right up to him like that. So what would make a guy want to walk up to a cop and do that? He's got a family. He's probably got kids.
And this is
where's this come from?
And the UK and the US don't own the monopoly on this, right?
No.
No matter what country you go to in some capacity, there is some sort of social injustice, economic disparity, right?
Right.
I mean, this isn't just specific to the UK, or the US for that matter. The riots have led to increased tension and division. Yeah. Right? That's obvious. The images of violence that we're seeing, on all the major news outlets here in the U.S., even if you go to like the BBC, you're going to see it. Destruction, violence and destruction can easily overshadow the underlying grievances and lead to polarized responses. I mean, let's look at here in the U.S. the college. I don't want to call them sit-ins, but the college protests, like at Harvard and other places, right, over Palestine and everything else, right. A lot of that, according to the news, a lot of the perceived violence or destruction of property was led by people who were not associated with the universities. Right. But you have police coming into these encampments and clearing house. Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that's what happened, I think, in Northwestern in Chicago.
Yeah, and then out on the west coast as well too. Mm-hmm.
UCLA, I remember that.
Yeah. Some people may focus on the rioting itself rather than the systemic issues that led to it. So I know we've painted a very broad picture, and it sounds like it's nothing but violence and despair. Not all of it is that, but I think it's fair to say our leaders are not stepping up and doing what we elected them to do. Right. So,
and it's on a local. I'm sorry, and it's on a local, and at least we can speak for here. It's like it's on a local and a national scale.
Well, it's even international.
Hence the topic, of course.
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, and that's just what's really concerning, right? In my opinion, I feel like we have, instead of having local or national authorities doing what they're supposed to be doing, it seems like they spend more time making excuses, and it only makes the situation worse.
Oh yeah, and it's buried in politics, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, is there a path forward? I think so. Is it going to take a lot of work? Yes.
Yeah. Because you're dealing with mindsets, man.
Yep. So what are some of the avenues to address these perceived challenges, right? Policy reform, for one. The government needs to address economic pressures. We're feeling the same economic pressures here in the U.S., right? Yeah. With high interest rates, that is keeping people out of the housing market. And then it's also keeping existing people who own homes in the housing market, because they know if they go to sell, the interest rate they have now, they're not going to pay if they go to buy another home.
They may not want to buy that home, and maybe that home is too small if they have a growing family and all. It's like, but hey, we got to stay.
So housing, wages, and social services, those all need to be revised. Mm-hmm. Okay. Inflation, that's a big key thing in our current election cycle.
Massive, right? Massive problem.
Improving policing and the justice systems. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about it a couple of months ago, and I have to go back and find the episode about the 3 illegal aliens that beat up the New York City cops.
Yeah.
And got out with a hand slap.
Yeah.
And didn't get deported, right? So there needs to be a focus on reforming the police and justice systems to address concerns about brutality and discrimination. I think that goes without saying.
Right.
Right. In the UK, UK police officers don't carry guns.
I'm surprised they've gone this long not having that. I'm sorry. It's like, there's anybody who's connected to the Parliament that's there, part UnWoke Nation UK. You guys got to change that.
Yeah.
Because we've seen way too many videos where cops doing their jobs but just people just overwhelming them, and it's like their nightstick is not going to do it.
Yeah, and that video of that man that is being arrested for improper use of communications network, is that really a proper use of a police officer's time, giving all the unrest that's taking place?
Right.
No, that's hypocrisy at its best.
Right, and it's like you'd be arresting tons and tons of people. So it's interesting how you have this guy that supposedly said something that you guys don't like, but there's people out there saying way worse stuff that potentially could incite people to whether kill somebody or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And you're not talking to us like we're actually looking at, I just noticed right now, pretending what you're saying is like Kevin Sorbo, the actor, he put up this thing, and actually he's actually talking about the UK, and it says, this is what's happening in the UK right now, and he pointed this picture of 3 different people. The first guy right here says that he posted racist comment on Facebook. He got 15 weeks in jail. This next guy has sold anti-immigration stickers. He got 24 months in jail. And the last guy repeatedly raped a 12-year-old girl. What does he get? 180 community hours and no prison time.
See,
make that make sense.
Yeah, that just shows you how messed up UK Parliament and their own house and their laws are just. Yeah. Right. I mean, that guy should be dead.
Yeah. Flat. Exactly.
Right. Community engagement, like we talk about here in the U.S., right? Engaging with affected communities and involving them in decision-making processes could help address grievances and help build effective solutions. I think on that front, it's not just the government engaging with the community. The community has to be willing to engage with the government on that front to really make a change. And then education and awareness, increasing public awareness and understanding of the root causes of unrest can help, potentially foster empathy, I would think, and support necessary reform. Education plays a key role in addressing misinformation and promoting dialogue, right? I mean, that's the same stuff that we're seeing here. Yeah. Right? Essentially do your due diligence and truly see if this is a legit versus, what is being spoon-fed to you through the media, whether you're in the UK or the US, I think there's a growing disdain for the media itself because I would agree. Right? Because they have become such a polarizing machine in society today. Of
whatever talking point or it seems to be the new trend or anything like that, it gets to the point where it's kind of like, you again, like you say, you have a hard time believing what's really going on or so. But even if you're a person that likes to do their due diligence, it's like people frown upon you. It's like you're vilified for actually wanting to know the truth, and that's messed up. I mean, it's half the reason why we started this show, so that we can be able to okay, look, these are some of the things where we know the media or what you're learning on social media is not telling you.
Absolutely. I want to believe that things are going to get better, but there's just such political and social unrest right now. I would argue probably that social unrest is probably the biggest. Anti-immigration, which I can at this point, whether you're the UK or the US, borders should just be shut down.
Yeah, again, we can speak for what's going on here in the U.S., and we can really say that the way that the government currently is running the way our southern border, that for those of you guys who don't know, it's like our southern border, mostly being the crisis bordering Mexico from the Rio Grande going straight on across to California.
Yep.
It has not been addressed, and unfortunately, kind of going back to what you're saying, is that it's being told to the American people, whether in Congress or like that the border is secure, and it is not.
Right.
It is not, and obviously we know this, and also because we have such situations of families that have been affected by like Lake and Riley. So
we're gonna cover that.
Yeah. So that needs to be. This is a major problem, and I'm sure the same thing is going on in the UK, as well. I'm watching a lot of stuff that goes on in Italy and Greece and different places like that. So it's not just our two countries, but this is an issue.
Yeah, this is a big time issue.
So
UnWoke Nation, we're going to leave it there. Hopefully, we've given you guys some insights. Would love to get your feedback. You can reach us at feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Again, that is feedback@unwoketheshow.com. Rich, a pleasure as always. And to our UnWoke Nation, you guys, stay unwoke.
See you next